makes Super Smash Bros. So special is that it shows all of these different franchises and universes coming together. In a game series with this many conflicting universes, you would think that a story wouldn't make any sense, and that games should just focus on them smacking each other around instead. However, Super Smash Bros. Brawl was able to stick the landing with its extremely well-received story mode called the Subspace Emissary. Brawl isn't the only game in the franchise to include a story mode, but it is the story mode that I think works the best. Let's take a look at the past story modes of Super Smash Bros. And ask ourselves what kind of story mode the game may have on the Switch 2. Something unique about Super Smash Bros. Melee's quote-unquote story mode is that you play the entire thing in one sitting. There is no tangible plot in Melee's adventure mode. Instead of beginning with the Smash Bros. Fights you're used to, you begin by going through a side-scrolling level while avoiding Goombas and Koopas. This is a fantastic subversion of the regular Smash Bros. Gameplay, but this being the first level kind of sets an expectation for adventure mode that the mode just doesn't live up to. Later on, there's a little Zelda labyrinth with Zelda enemies, but those are really the only two side-scrolling levels in the entire game. You could maybe count the Metroid jumping area and the F-Zero track running area where you have to get on platforms so you don't get run over by cars, but those two areas feel more like their own challenges rather than levels. Other than that, adventure mode includes little fights with familiar faces. You go up against Mario and Peach, Samus, a bunch of Pikachus, and many others. These fights take place on the same stages that you see in the regular Smash mode, and don't deviate too far from just fighting regular CPUs. At the end of adventure mode, you fight a slightly larger Bowser. If you complete adventure mode in less than 18 minutes on normal or higher difficulty, you will fight Giga Bowser. And therein lies the issue. You can complete the entire story mode in less than 20 minutes. The game actively encourages you to do so by rewarding you with the secret Giga Bowser battle. However, to give this mode the credit it's due, the fact that it is so brief does allow for it to put in some fun secrets. For example, if you complete the Kirby battles fast enough, you can fight a giant Kirby. Or if you finish the first level with the number 2 at the end of your timer, you fight Luigi instead of Mario, which will unlock him if you haven't done so already. Its shortness also allows for multiple playthroughs, and thanks to the point system, you are encouraged to perfect your run. But all in all, adventure mode just seems like a more predictable classic mode, with some highlights being the few parts of it that are unique. Melee's adventure mode is the way it is because Melee was a rushed game development-wise. The developers clearly did want to make more of these side-scrolling levels, but obviously were just strapped for time, and decided to cobble together adventure mode instead. Adventure mode is a cute little experience that you can pick up and enjoy for about 20 minutes. While it's not perfect, I feel it's one of Melee's most defining features. Never in a party game, let alone a big crossover fighting game, have I ever seen such a wonderful single-player story mode as Subspace Emissary. The levels that Melee teased in adventure mode have now officially been fully realized. Gauntlets of platforming and enemies peppered with boss battles, and of course, the brilliant cutscenes that tell a meaningful story with absolutely no dialogue. I could see arguments that the levels play a little clunkily. Since Smash Bros. Characters move like fighting game characters, they don't platform as well as playable characters designed for platformers would. But for me, that's the fun of it. I like that you have to use up Bs to get to places. I like that it's harder to position yourself. It's all part of the magic of combining Smash Bros. Controls with 2D platformer gameplay. Despite my love for Subspace, I have 3 major criticisms. First and foremost, enemy variety. All of the enemies are original to Brawl, with the only exceptions being Goombas, Koopas, Bullet Bills, and Hammer Bros, as well as the Rob Sentries, which, while not ever appearing in a game before, still have precedence in Nintendo. I think the original enemies are great, I really do, but they should have been sprinkled in with recognizable enemies from the other franchises. My second criticism is of the world itself. It's kinda generic. None of the locations really acknowledge the franchises present in the game. Now, on the other hand, I get why this is. It keeps the story mode neutral. It doesn't take place in the Mushroom Kingdom, or Hyrule, or Fire Emblem Town. It's its own place, and the characters are just all there. I'll touch on this more in the final section, where I ponder what the next Smash Bros. Can do with its story mode. My last criticism of Subspace is the lack of regular fights. While I'm glad the platforming is the star of the show, the main aspect of gameplay appears quite rarely. Subspace Emissary succeeds beyond just being a good story mode. It completely redefines the identity of Brawl and gives broader context to the characters. I spent a lot of time playing Brawl with people back in the day, and knowing that these characters existed beyond just being dropped onto a battlefield made them matter to me more. When Brawl's successor lacked a story mode, it really hurt that sense of immersion. Smash for 3DS and Wii U had no story mode. It just wasn't attempted. This was extremely disappointing. I think it's likely they didn't add a story mode because these Smash Bros. Games were created deeper into the online era. While Brawl also had online play, it was released at a time where that wasn't as popular. So the developers still valued single-player content. While this probably wasn't the only reason Subspace Emissary 2 wasn't made for these games, development time and putting the game on 2 platforms was probably also a major factor. The fact that the developers could be confident players would be able to enjoy the game online while they were by themselves gave them an out when it came to making a story mode. I do want to address Smash Run. This mode isn't a story mode, it's a mode where you go around a big map beating up enemies and getting power-ups to then use in one final challenge. However, Smash Run did solve one problem I had with Subspace Emissary, which was a lack of enemies from the franchises in favor of original enemies. Unfortunately, you can only fight these enemies in this small piece of content in Smash for 3DS. World of Light seemed so promising when its opening cutscene was first shown. Did it deliver? No! Here's the fundamental problem with World of Light and spirits as a whole. If you have the right spirits, you win almost effortlessly. If you don't have good spirits, you lose miserably. How well you play in the battles is secondary, and in a game like Smash, that severely hinders my enjoyment of the gameplay. I would say the dumbest part of World of Light's design is when a battle has a hazard like floor is lava or sticky floor, but then you equip a spirit that just removes that. So what's the point of it even being a sticky floor? That's not actually a part of the challenge anymore. Why is the game encouraging me not to directly engage with the concept that it introduced? The only way I can enjoy World of Light is if I set restrictions on myself. I found the happy medium was to not use any spirits if the opponent had 3,000 or less power. And if they had more than that, I would only use spirits that have 1/3 of their power or less. This was the perfect balance between getting completely trounced by my opponent or me completely trouncing them. I also don't allow myself to just turn off the hazards. I have to face them head on. If you play this way, you'll actually be challenged to win the battles by fighting well, which is the most fun way to beat them. I just think it's odd that I have to self-impose a challenge in order to actually enjoy this game mode. There's also a skill tree that kinda falls flat as well. Like, you have spirits that power you up, but also you power yourself up in another way? What? Collecting spirits also isn't really fun to do. It's not like Pokemon where you feel a connection to everyone you've collected. The spirit list just gets so bloated with multiples of the same faces you don't even know who you're looking at anymore. World of Light's positives are that it has a lot of content, and the battles can be fun if you restrict yourself from using the strongest spirit. The battles themselves feel a lot like the event battles from previous games, just given a new theme in the spirit characters. They are super clever, and they all do a great job of, no pun intended, spiritually representing the character they are themed around. But World of Light is only the battles. It lacks the side-scrolling levels from Subspace Emissary, and it lacks regular enemies, which I think was just a missed opportunity. So, that's a look at the past Super Smash Bros. Story modes. But what does the future entail? Quick interruption, then back to the video. Just so you know, I also cover movies and TV shows over on my other channel, Stories Are Meaningful. And I just put out a video analyzing the Super Mario Bros. Movie. You should really check it out. Link in the description. I think it's incredibly likely that the next Super Smash Bros. Will have a story mode. And more so, I think it's likely that it will have a story mode similar to Subspace Emissary. The developers have to at least be a little bit aware of how much fans want to see something similar to what Brawl did. A lot of these party games are starting to get more focus on their story modes nowadays. However, not all of them have delivered. For example, Super Mario Party Jamboree finally broke the trend of Mario Party games lacking single-player content. But that story mode was clearly an afterthought by the developers and the absolute weakest part of that game. By the way, you should check out my video on Jamboree's story mode right after this one. A link in the description. Regardless of Jamboree's failings, I do think games like this in the Switch leading into the Switch 2 era are going to start focusing on single-player content more. But what is it that the next Super Smash Bros. Could do in terms of a story mode? Super Smash Bros. Ultimate has an absolutely ginormous roster, and I'm pretty sure the next Super Smash Bros. Is going to leave that roster behind and instead focus on quality, not quantity. In my video on that subject, I predicted that the next Smash Bros. Would make massive cuts to the roster, especially in terms of third-party characters who only have one character in the game. In doing so, Smash would focus more on updating the movesets of older characters and adding more to the franchises that stay. A story mode would work well with this kind of creative direction, as a game with fewer characters that has more focus put on those characters would really do a potential Subspace Emissary 2 justice. I also think that, instead of having the story mode take place in a neutral, generic land, it should be a literal colliding of worlds. I personally don't want to see any universe hopping, as I feel that would disconnect the worlds from each other. Instead, through some kind of sci-fi magic shenanigans, elements of each universe get molded together. Mushrooms and Pokemon centers and Splatoon cities all coexisting in one big area, with a wide variety of enemies from all sorts of Nintendo worlds all coming together for you to fight. And one last hope I have for this potential story mode is for it to please not include spirits or any sort of mechanic that powers up your character or customizes them. While the idea of customizing your character seems cool, it has just never been compatible with Super Smash Bros. It's not that kind of game, and I wish the developers would just stop trying it. I just want to play as the characters. I want to have access to their attacks and their tools so that I, as the player, have to make the best of that in order to achieve victory. I want to win on my skills alone, not because I powered up with the ultimate orb super spirit special attack blah blah blah. Honestly, I'm pretty confident that we'll be getting a Subspace style story mode in the next game, but the idea of something like spirits coming in and ruining it genuinely scares me. But what do you think of Smash Bros.'s previous story modes? And what do you think the next Smash is gonna do? Let me know in the comments below. I'd really love to hear from you. Hey, if you like this video on Super Smash Bros., maybe you'd like to see my thoughts on which characters will probably get cut in the next game. Click on this video right here if that's something you want to see. Or if you want to check out my other channel that covers movies and TV shows, check out this video right here. If you like what I do and want to see me do more of it, consider becoming a channel member or supporting my Patreon. Link in the description. Thank you so much for watching. See you next time.